Okay, so we're back on air. Mr. Hitchens, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Really looking forward to kicking off the exchange room and, as the title suggests, exchanging lots of ideas and conversations about global citizenship.
Yes, that is great news. I know that all of our audiences are very eager to listen to your sharing, your insights, and your conversation. So whenever you're ready with your presentation, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So my name is Brendan, and as you can see from the slides there, I'm from an organisation based in Melbourne called the Asia Education Foundation. And today I'll be discussing with you a program that we have run called Harvest Ed, which I've been lucky enough to design and deliver. So I'll be exploring the concepts of global citizenship and the boundaries and the opportunities, particularly through the lens of agriculture and food security. So I'll be using some practical examples that I've used in this program, which was delivered in Queensland, in Australia. So as I said, this is called the exchange room. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. And at the end of the session, I'll also be taking time to answer some questions that you may have. So let's begin. We know that food access is a fundamental human right, and it's also essential to our own survival. But what if the way in which that we produce, manufacture, and transport it is actually slowly killing us and the planet at the same time? Did you know that agriculture is the second largest cause of the destruction of the Amazon? Or that agriculture sits amongst the world's largest polluting industries? Or that each day livestock, such as cows, produce harmful greenhouse gases, including nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide, and methane. Such exasperating food and water shortages have implications across all of society, including increased inequities, hunger, malnutrition, and poverty. As the correlation between wealth and health firms its grip, vulnerable populations continue to suffer. Research suggests that certain groups, particularly here in Australia, are more susceptible to food insecurity. These include unemployed people, single parent households, low income earners, rental households, young people, and Indigenous, culturally, and linguistically diverse communities. The political, social, cultural, and economical role of agriculture throughout history cannot be underestimated. Such interconnectedness, whilst beneficial for many, are also problematic. Take, for example, the roots of farming in colonialism, including the extraction of natural resources, the use of slavery, and the introduction of invasive species, or the exploitation of migrant labour as seasonal workers who are often exposed to unsafe and unregulated working conditions.
Thank you.
More recently, the reliance of strong geopolitical and economic relationships to trade have shown us that agriculture is political. And one such example is China imposing tariffs and trade sanctions on Australia and their export products, including barley, wine, beef, and seafood. COVID-19 and the ongoing war in the Ukraine have been a valuable case study of food security. In Australia, and particularly Melbourne, where I'm living, skyrocketing rises in commodity prices have ranged from food to toilet paper to petrol and gas, to name just a few. This economic fallout will be felt for a long time to come. A recent example is that iceberg lettuces, as you can see in the photo, have sold up to $12 each, strawberries at $14.99 each, and petrol is up to $2.30 per litre, as this inevitable tipping point of demand overcoming supply is continually pushed to the limit. So, is agriculture the cause of global problems, or is it the very solution? And this question and the answer is complex, and it's full of lots of contradictions. Alarmingly, the United Nations research from 2021, so just last year, reveals that 1/3 of all food that we produce is either lost or wasted. That is around 1.3 billion tons of food, which is therefore contributing to climate change through wasted water, land, energy, and labour resources. So from the outside, it often appears that the agriculture industry is as self-sabotage as it is sustainable. Take, for example, the paddock to plate supply chain that is reliant on transportation, while the very same burning fossil fuels of its trucks, its ships, its trains, and its planes are damaging the same crops and vegetation. Or the fact that single-use plastics and food packaging remain one of the planet's most persistent pollutants. So these are all enormous issues that confront us all, and they can't be solved alone or in isolation. So you're probably thinking, what does any of this have to do with education? Well, as I'm sure you all know, it's often quoted that education is a vehicle for change. And I referenced the theme of this year's conference and the topics of global citizenship and global competence. When defining that term, global citizenship, Oxfam mentioned concerns for environmental problems and a commitment to sustainability. UNICEF mentioned an appreciation for diversity and global interconnectedness, a desire to confront societal inequities, and a willingness to act meaningfully. And as PISA confirmed, global competence can help young people to care about global issues and engage in tackling social, political, economical, and also environmental challenges. Here in Australia, we have a document which is called the Alice Springs Education Declaration. And in that document, they echo many of the same sentiments. On one of the pages, they write, the curriculum supports students to become responsible, local, and global members of the community in an interconnected world, and to engage with complex ethical issues and concepts such as sustainability. These skills support imagination, they support discovery, innovation, empathy, and developing creative solutions to these large and complex problems. So, acknowledging this, I believe that agriculture and farming is the perfect vehicle for deep, contextual, integrated, and experiential learning. Moreover, the Australian curriculum, and indeed the curriculums across the world, have so many connections to link to global citizenship. From the general capabilities such as literacy, numeracy, and ICT, through to critical and creative thinking, personal and social capability, and ethical and intercultural understanding. So let's use that final capability, intercultural understanding, as a bit of a case study. How do we put the word culture into agriculture? And perhaps more specifically, themes of intercultural understanding. So when we talk about the term multiculturalism, often our minds gravitate towards food, and we romanticize these notions of big celebrations and festivals and sharing meals. And whilst they're valid and they have their place, sometimes we neglect to delve deeper below the surface on just how entrenched food is in culture and our shared histories and experiences. So to highlight this point, let's look at two of the cross-curricular priorities that are within the Australian curriculum to explore this concept of intercultural learning and the opportunities. So the Education Department of Australia say intercultural learning is what gives students the tools and the language to engage with and better understand their world at both a national, regional, and then a global level. So I wanted to begin by talking about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures. Did you know that here in Australia, for thousands of years and well before European settlement, Indigenous Australians actually created methods of agriculture, which included crop growing, fish trapping, and controlled burning to encourage new growth in native plants and to facilitate hunting. Or that in the year 1700s, in the 1700s, I should say, the Makassar people of Sulawesi in Indonesia would sail to the Kimberley regions and Arnhem Land each year to trade for sea cucumbers, known as tripang. So segueing into Asia and Australia's engagement with Asia, when the sugar production needed a larger workforce between the years of 1863 and 1904, more than 62,000 men, women, and children were brought from across the Pacific Islands to work in Australia, and more specifically Queensland, by plantation owners. So they came from over 80 different countries, which included Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, and also Fiji. In the gold rush in Australia in the 1850s, historians note that Chinese people came to Australia. Now, when the gold was exhausted, many of these people took up market gardening jobs or established local businesses and restaurants. In the second half of the 19th century, South Sea Islanders were recruited to work in Queensland's sugar plantations. The Afghan cameleers played a vital role in the exploration and opening up of the Australian outback, and Japanese divers contributed to the development of the pearl industry. If we fast forward to today, and 2020 data reveals that Australia's trade partnership and relationship with Asia remain strong, with 70% of Australia's top 10 two-way trading partners coming from the region, with so many of these being agriculture. And Australia's relationship with Vietnam is just one such example. So the sheer size of Australia's agriculture and food industry and its influence across the region is actually often overlooked. It blows my mind that there are cattle stations in Australia, as you can see on the map, that are larger than entire nations. So one such example is the Anna Creek Ranch, which is located in South Australia. And that ranch is actually bigger than countries including Israel, Fiji, Samoa, East Timor, and Singapore, to name just a few. Or another fact that surprises me is that there's parts of Queensland that are actually geographically closer to Asian nations, such as Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and the Solomon Islands, than they are to other parts of Australia, such as Melbourne or Tasmania. So for the agriculture industry, Australia, Asia, and indeed the entire world, to address some of these current and future global issues, it's going to require collaboration and a real acknowledgement of just how interconnected our planet is. Without food security, there can be no global future. In fact, without food security, there'll be no future at all. So what we need to solve this is to focus on engagement and empowerment of youth and young people. So to highlight this, I want to share with you the Harvest Ed program, which the Asia Education Foundation have developed. And we promote this as agricultural learning for global citizenship. And as you can see through the infographic there, it aims to do a number of things. These include engaging young people in purposeful learning that helps to improve or strengthen their potential careers, particularly in agriculture, to develop their intercultural understanding of people, places, communities, the challenges and also the opportunities in agriculture, to increase their understanding of just how interconnected agriculture, trade, business, and communities are, and to enhance their global and regional understanding and awareness. But as we talk about the limitations or the boundaries of global citizenship, I believe that to understand the world, first you have to understand your own home and your own country. So if any of you have been lucky enough to visit Queensland, you'd know just how big it is. And here is a view of Queensland from a telescope in space. Queensland's agricultural industry is diverse in so many different ways, from its climate to its food production, its workers, the skill sets, and its trading partners across Asia and the whole world. Data from 2017 and 2018 found that there are over 17,400 farms in Queensland, which make up about 22% of all farm businesses in Australia. The biggest commodity that Queensland shares with the world are cattle and calves, followed by sugarcane and also poultry. So when we talk about the idea of connecting communities, one such way the Asia Education Foundation's program was able to do this, and just like we're doing today, is connecting via the internet. So through our program, with a computer, a simple webcam, and internet connection, students were able to overcome these geographic distances or borders and be able to connect with each other on a digital platform every week. So by connecting these students from different schools across the state, it broadened their perspectives and enhanced their collaboration and social skills. And it really modeled to them the possibilities of global connections through the simple use of technology. So in connecting students from these diverse schools, from diverse communities, they were able to learn from and with each other and discuss some of the similarities and differences of their communities. Now, one such example is we had two schools there from Rockhampton and Aramac. Now, these schools are over 700 kilometres apart. One of these schools is from an area which has a population of 80,665 people, while the other one, the entire town's population, was just over 200. So one was a big regional town with an airport, and the other one was a tiny rural settlement situated in the outback. So you can see that diversity of opinions opens up students' mind to not just their local region, but also to the world. So what Harvest Ed tries to do is to engage students to think global while acting locally. And the way we do this is through design thinking and also problem-based learning principles. And this helps students to generate solutions to some of the big problems that they have identified. So if you haven't heard of design thinking before, the people that founded it or came up with the idea state that design thinking is a non-linear, iterative process that teams use to understand different users, to challenge their assumptions, to redefine problems, and to create innovative solutions to therefore prototype and to test. And as the document there or the image suggests, there's 5 different phases: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So Harvest Ed and a design thinking and project-based learning experience of this kind of nature, it helps to generate an authentic learning experience. And the education evidence also highlights that this kind of authenticity and approach to learning helps students to develop a sense of purposefulness and a real impact on their learning. So across the program, students heard from different experts and members of the community, different professionals. They considered some of the current opportunities and challenges that exist in agriculture, and they developed their own solutions and action-orientated ideas. They developed a range of potential solutions to problems using a variety of learning activities, developed around their own well-researched and evidence-based design thinking processes and instructional strategies. They prototyped solutions to the issues that they personally were passionate about. And some of these included sustainability and greater environmental consciousness, technology and automation, ethics and genetically modified products, urbanization and indoor farming. And all of these issues help them make better sense of how interdependent our world is and fostering their awareness of action for global citizenship. So I wanted to share with you some specific examples from students that were involved in the program. And these are Year 9 students, so about 14 years of age. As you can see on the screen there, Lara's initiative focused on the health and well-being of farmers and spending more time with their family and their loved ones. So Lara identified from personal experience that many farmers start work at sunrise and get home at sunset. They often work days that are longer than 12 hours. And this has a significant effect on their health and well-being, and particularly their mental health. So Lara's idea was a charity that donates state-of-the-art technology to farmers so they can work smarter, not harder. So Lara flipped the idea of automation on its head and used it to its advantage. So by using automated technology and cutting out elements of these long, manual, laborious days, the farmers could therefore spend more time with their families. Or there was Summer, and she created a bee promotional campaign, which, in her own words, was to make people become aware of just how much we need bees for our survival, how they can also contribute to medical fields, not just the agricultural industry. Another solution from students was a cow Fitbit. So based on the Fitbit technology that you might have all seen before, this cow Fitbit uses GPS tracking technology to monitor cattle's well-being, its movement, and its exercise. Other students came up with an idea which was an invisible fence that used light beams to keep out species like kangaroos, wild pigs, and foxes. And another group came up with a food sorting machine that separated fruit and vegetables, and it passed the edible food onto homeless shelters and those less fortunate, and the non-edible food went back to farmers, which was used for stock, food, and also compost. So along with design thinking, other teaching and learning strategies that we use in Harvest Ed included questioning and provocations. So generating the students' thinking by promoting debate and dialogue and asking them some really deep inquiry questions, such as, do farmers control the environment, or does the environment control farmers? Is it easier to be a farmer today than it was 100 years ago? Is it more important for food to be affordable or to be nutritious? And what would the ideal farm look like from an animal's perspective? So together with critical and creative thinking, a focus was on also promoting divergent and convergent thinking. So challenging students to think outside the box and that kind of typical binary of yes or no answers that they're probably used to in their day-to-day classrooms. So what I would like to do today in the chat box or even on the microphone is to model one quick example of an activity that we did with the students. Now, some of you might have heard this or done this before, and it's an activity called 100 uses. I know Sir Ken Robinson often used it with a paperclip, and you can use just about any item you like with this. But given I've been talking a lot about Queensland today, I thought we'd use the idea of a pineapple. So for the next couple of minutes, I'd like to challenge you to think of an alternative use for a pineapple. Now, thinking beyond simply a fruit that you can eat or drink, thinking outside of the square, what else could you use a pineapple for? It could be the outside, the inside, it could be the top of it. So if you would like to activate the chat or to raise your hand, what do you think an alternative use for a pineapple could be? Okay, I can see somebody has said a door stopper. Somebody has also said we could use it for an art piece. Someone has said we could use the round part as a ball. Someone has said skincare. Yeah, that's a good idea. The vitamins from inside it. Someone has said a back scratcher, which is a good idea because it's so prickly. And someone said we could use it for art. So we could use the spiky parts and the prickly parts as some kind of stamp. Fantastic. Well, did you know that along with products such as juice and jam and confectionery, different parts of the pineapple are currently being used for countless other products. The footwear company Puma is actually currently prototyping a shoe, which you can see there on the screen, which uses pineapple skin as a leather substitute. There's also companies out there that are currently creating watch bands, handbags, and clothing from excess pineapple. Pineapple is also being used for medicinal and healthcare purposes as well. So consider this. With Australia being the home of pineapples, think of all the different possibilities that this kind of thinking could create and how divergent thinking could open up so many new and creative ideas. What might this mean for the economy? What could it mean for employment? What could it mean for environmental sustainability? And if we're using it for a leather substitute, what could it even mean for animal welfare? So if we can use pineapple skins to create shoes, what other products that are currently going to waste or going to landfill could we repurpose to help better serve the environment? So I'd like to share with you a couple more of these creative design thinking ideas that we use for students to think about the world critically and creatively. One such example in the top left corner is called Yes and this is developed from a drama game where students, rather than saying no and putting up roadblocks, they expand on each other's ideas. Down the bottom right, there's an activity called 1 + 1 = 1, where you get two different concepts and merge them together. One student came up with a brilliant idea that farmers spend so much time outside in the sun. What happens if we put a solar panel on their hat? And that way, while they were working, they were also generating energy for their electricity. Some other examples you can see there are an empathy map, a pre-mortem, and one of the favorite activities of students is what would X do? So with X, you can substitute any person in the world, a celebrity, an inspiration, a local person. We chose to use Jeff Bezos, one of the richest people in the world from Amazon, and think what would Jeff Bezos do about drought problems in the world? So students said things like he might go searching on another planet for water. He might use a rocket to drop seedlings down onto Earth, or he might even use satellite imagery to find out where other sources of water are. So these types of skills and learning dispositions are often referred to as 21st century learning skills. And we've all heard of critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration so often being listed. But the emerging terms and the terms that I like to use in my programs are things like entrepreneurship, agility, adaptability, curiosity, and imagination. And Harvest Ed has a really strong emphasis on these, as well as effective oral and written communication. So one example of this is in the final day of our program, participants use this concept of the television show Shark Tank, where they pitch their ideas, their innovations, their inventions, and their products to a team of industry professionals for genuine feedback. So students also showcase an array of skills: communication, persuasive writing, reflection, and discussion. And when we hear terms like global futures, we're reminded with education that it's often about preparing students for future jobs that don't even exist yet. And that's very much the case for agriculture. So as you can see through this table, there are so many careers and jobs that link back to agriculture. It's not just on a farm or working with animals. So farming is changing. The middle-aged man wearing overalls and a straw hat, that stereotype is passing. Farming is more diverse and it's more inclusive. It has a greater consciousness and greater compassion. It incorporates science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which we commonly now refer to as STEM. It's cross-national, it's cross-sector, and it's cross-community. And as we all know, we rely on agriculture for our own survival. Yes, the future is quite scary, but it's also really exciting, and it's full of opportunity for collective and collaborative global action. particularly when it's young people who are driving the change. And I'd like to highlight some quotes from students which really emphasize this. Some of my favorite ones there are, "We can make a difference. We have a voice and people will listen. There is always a way to turn a threat into an opportunity." And it made me think that small things can still make a big difference. So whether your school or you're able to participate in Harvest Ed or not, I still firmly encourage you to look at global competence and global citizenship through the lens of food security and farming, and explore the possibilities that it opens up for an integrated curriculum. As PISA state, global competence is a multi-dimensional construct that requires a combination of knowledge, of skills, attitudes, and values, all successfully applied to global issues and intercultural situations. And agriculture provides just that and so much more. So thank you very much for listening to my presentation today. If you'd like to continue the conversation, feel free to use any of the social media below, and you can see my personal Twitter is just there. But I would now like to open up the floor to any questions that you have about the Harvest Ed program, perhaps about global citizenship education in Australia, or anything that might be on your mind following that presentation. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon Hitchens, for your sharing. Due to the time constraint, we can only deliver one of the many questions that the audience sent to us. So I'm going to read out this question. As you have mentioned, Harvest Ed is a diversity-driven, progressive, and ethical project. It is truly a meaningful effort at cross-national education of agriculture and value exchange. So in your opinion, what is the most challenging aspect of materializing a global project like Harvest Ed? Thank you.
I think that question basically sums up the whole program. It's all about the concept of a growth mindset. So it's about turning those challenges into opportunities. So rather than saying like it's hard to connect people, we look for creative ways to do that. Rather than saying climate change is a problem, we look at different ways we can address that. So I guess that's the biggest challenge. The challenge is just changing people's perceptions to think differently to how they would normally approach a situation or a learning context.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Brandon Hitchens, for your answer. I think that many of the audiences are very eager to join your organization because I saw that a lot of questions coming in are from students who would like to join Harvest Ed. So once again, I would conclude this first session of this afternoon. I would like to thank Mr. Hitchens for your sharing, and we deeply appreciate your participation with us today.